It's another beautiful day in the neighborhood. And do you ever have those days when you don't feel like doing anything? Nothing really captures your interest. It's kind of like you're floating through the day. Yeah, that's kind of how it's been for me today. Oh, it's a good day to be that way because it's beautiful to be outside. And we've been outside all day. And now we're headed off to pick up our friend from his dialysis. And we're probably going to go out to dinner. Yeah, we both have the urge for a certain thing, which I've shared here before. Fried chicken. We're not having a healthy month. It's like all that comfort food urge we resisted over winter. It's hitting us in March. Which is not me whining. It's me just saying, it is what it is. That one's for you, Ro. So, I didn't have the focus to read this morning. I didn't have this focus. I didn't want to be online. Didn't feel like being connected to the electronics. So instead, just went out and wandered around for the day. Really, really nice out. Good day. So far. But there are some darker clouds making their way in. I don't know if it's supposed to rain today or not, but that looks like a chance of rain in those clouds. And that's kind of how the day went. We went out for the day, just out in the hood. I went for a walk. Had a little problem with that today, so maybe not walking for a couple of days. That's okay. That's what golf carts and benches are for in our neighborhood. It comes in really handy. Where we lived before, if I couldn't walk well, I was kind of housebound. So, yeah, this golf cart community thing, something I honestly didn't know existed until 4 years ago. It's a good thing. So we picked up our friend from dialysis. Roger went inside and waited for him. Roger being Roger, my beloved social butterfly. He likes to go inside. He chats up all the patients that are waiting, all the patients that are coming and going. He chats up all the bus drivers that are there, the special needs drivers that the state provides to get a lot of people back and forth to their dialysis. Roger did that for a while. And so he has a lot of things in common with these guys. Roger, his entire career, was a correctional officer. And when he developed the first symptoms of the COPD, that was the end of that for him. And he drove a bus transporting people to doctor's appointments and dialysis and things like that for a few years after that before he had to stop working altogether. So I think he enjoys shop talk with the bus drivers. I stayed in the car with my Sudoku book and did some Sudoku and people watched and cloud watched. Glorious cloud day. I think all my tiny moment pictures today were ones that clouds caught my eye. It was supposed to be a bright and clear day with a chance of being partly cloudy, but it became rather dramatically cloudy as the day went by. Oh, I do love the bright blue we had early in the day, but there's something about dramatic clouds. Especially, we were talking about this tonight, because the rest of the story goes, when we picked our friend up from dialysis, he was feeling particularly well, so he ended up going out to dinner with he and his wife. Well, dinner when the four of us go out is always a 3-hour affair because we talk and we laugh and we just have a good time and spend time over coffee after the meal's done, and yeah, kind of pass the entire evening that way. And one of the things we were talking about is where we live, it's flat as a piece of paper. Totally flat. And one of the things that happens here is when we have dramatic cloud days like this, they had noticed, as we had, how beautiful the clouds rolling by were. Everything moving inland and out over the ocean. So the inland temperatures were actually rather warm today. They were like 70 degrees. The closer you got down to the bay, and then of course over to the ocean, it got cooler, but it was actually a very, very nice day. Nicer than they said it was going to be. But these clouds were rather dramatic, multicolored, all different kinds of shapes. And it was breezy. And when the land is as flat as it is here, and a lot of you live in places where the land is flat, so you'll agree with this. It's just like this for you. You get this sense of vast distance because you have a true sense of the clouds that are moving literally across the land, across the United States and coming our way, hitting the East Coast. And a sense of them moving past, and in our sense, going out to sea. And it's just it's a magnificent feeling. That's a word we use tonight. And also one that makes you feel very small, because you just start to get a little bit of a feeling in a moment that you lose very quickly. What a small piece of the universe you are. So we found out that at least 3 of us tonight, Roger tends to react to "aren't they pretty" more than getting existential when the way he looks at the clouds. But the other 3 of us really were lost in this feeling of being lost in the clouds today. And that was it. That was the day. The whole morning and well into the afternoon, just out and about outside. I tried walking, but it ended up being, in the end, a golf cart day for me. And then we went to get our friend from his dialysis, and then we went out for an extended 3.5 hour dinner. This is the couple we spend so much time laughing with. So it was that kind of night. A day very suited to someone that didn't feel like doing a darn thing. There's tomorrow for getting some stuff done. I'll think about that come tomorrow. So, yep, I had a couple questions. And I apologize to my viewer who posted this on one of my videos that I haven't been online yet tonight to get your name again, to mention it. I don't mean to disrespect you, but I wanted you to know why I'm not mentioning your name. But thank you for asking a question. Oh, I do welcome these questions. You ask me how I find the time for all the reading and the studying. I do, and you ask me favorite authors. Well, this thing about time, the first thing is, retired, I have it. I haven't had time since I was a teenager like what I have now, because I started working full-time when I was 16. I was on my own right before I turned 18. So I've not had time. I was a homemaker once for, I think it was 2 years, where I was raising my stepson and I didn't work outside the home. But I was one of those women who was just involved up to my eyeballs in everything. Kind of like the way I'm with church now. So everything my stepson was involved in, and the neighborhood community and my church, and involved in lots of things. And you know how it is raising a child. Obviously there wasn't a lot of time just for me, certainly no quiet time. So I'm really enjoying, as an adult in this retirement time of my life, so the last 3 years, my first experience of having time to myself. Not just in little snippets of time I grab, but time for myself. I've always been, though, I'm going to be honest, someone who is really good about making time for myself. The decade I was involved in a traditional Wiccan coven, there were no possibilities to not be present for every Esbit and Sabbat, which happened on their correct date. We didn't fiddle with dates in those days. And to be available once a week for the salons for that. And then when I was elevated to High Priestess, teaching and spending time with covenants and petitioners and then dedicants became part of my responsibilities. I always made time for that. Even in times when my career was high-powered, or earlier on when I worked outside the home, but I was also involved in raising my stepson. So I've always been someone who gave a lot of priority to the things I determined personally were important in life. One of the things that has consistently made that easier for me is, I doubt many of my viewers can say they don't watch TV. I can say consistently throughout the length of my life, I haven't watched TV. You find a lot of hours in your day, if you don't. Hours that you can choose what to do with. Oh, you can fill them meeting what you perceive of as the demands that other people make on you, but you can also be creative about carving out the places for you within that. That's one of the reasons I have a lot of time. And literally, from 8 o'clock in the morning until midnight or so in a day, I can choose what to do with that time. A lot of you won't be at that point in your life, and I respect that. I honor the work it takes to carve out time for yourself, no matter what you decide to do with that time. I truly and deeply respect that. Not to the point, though, and I ran into this with students, and we had to get past this and have serious discussions about it if they couldn't keep to the commitments they were being asked to make on behalf of the coven. You own your life. You own every minute of your life, and you can carve out time for what's most important for you. And no one says it's easy. That's why I respect so much the place a lot of you are in your lives at the moment. Now, for me, right now, it's rather easy to carve out time. I probably have to keep an eye more on the fact that I get involved in so many things that bring me joy that I end up not devoting quality time to the things that perhaps matter the most amongst that. That's how I find the time for reading and studying, but it's also because of the great joy it brings me. I'm a collector of information. I'm a cataloger. I am an encyclopedist. I am a journalist. I collect experiences. I collect wisdom from other sources. And I enjoy the act of gathering in, making a record of it, and then deciding what it is for me. That doesn't please everyone. That can be an onerous thing for some. But one of the reasons why it's easy for me to make time for things like reading and studying is I'm in my absolute place of joy in the process of that. Therefore, it encourages me to give it priority. Now, here's the tricky part of that question. Favorite authors. It's hard for me to say favorite authors. I was inspired in great part early on by science fiction and fantasy authors that encouraged me to think outside the box. I was encouraged by authors of fiction, historical fiction, more classic forms of historical fiction like the Egyptian and books like that that really immerse themselves completely in the history. Even books like Gone with the Wind, or it's hard for me to say that there's any particular author that would be the one, but books that took me into another world that existed in another time, but existed in reality, in addition to books that took me into worlds that only existed in the place of imagination. I don't have a whole long list of favorite authors that have to do with pagan subjects. I've always studied spirituality at a broader level than that. So the books I read on spirituality have been on world religions and religions through history and mythology and archaeology and poetry, nature journals. Thinking Annie Dillard and Pilgrim at Tinker Creek, May Sarton's poetry, authors and essayists and journalists. When we moved here, I kept a handful of witchy pagan kind of books. I got rid of the rest of them. Not saying I didn't have them and didn't read them, because of course I did, and of course I did. But they weren't something that I treasured. It would be something I would read again. They were read once as a matter of curiosity, as much to keep me up to date with where contemporary paganism, and especially where Wicca was going, in some senses. A way to keep up on that and not feel like I was falling terribly behind the times, because I was. And only a couple of those books made the cut when we came here. Thinking what made the cut when I actually saved pagan kinds of books. Not many. Probably about 10 on a bookshelf someplace. Because I have an emotional attachment to them and didn't want to part with them. I gave away all my other books before we moved. The only one I go back to and reread every now and then is Vivienne Crowley's Wicca. So my bookshelves are filled with books on goddesses throughout history and books on nature. A lot of those are poetry and essays and that kind of thing. I don't really have a favorite author. Oh, I've shared in book challenges on Facebook or even here on YouTube that I actually am a big fan of Ayn Rand. And because of the certain ways that Atlas Shrugged informed me when I was a young woman when I read it for the first time. Oh, I'm not an objectivist, but when it came to where we studied magic and we were told how responsible we are for every word, which is an act of creation, and our every deed, and its impact on the tapestry of existence, I got that in great part immediately because of Atlas Shrugged. That we aren't excused in life from being responsible for our actions, and the rewards that we get in life are in equal response to the effort we put out. So there's probably the book that influenced me the most when it comes to books. But as far as a collection of authors, no. I can't really say I have favorite authors. I think the thing about reading for me has been the very possibility of entering so many brains and going so many places. So I hope that doesn't seem like a wishy-washy answer to my viewer that asked that question. Favorite authors? For someone who spends 6 hours a day reading, I don't have an answer that's very specific about that. I had another question that someone asked. You can tell I don't have my computer on to look at my notes. It's not been a day I've wanted to turn the computer on. I've stayed hesitant to that all day long. Oh, the question was an interesting one too. It was not a comment on a video. It was something someone emailed me. That should be it for the day. Thanks for letting me ramble. There are some tiny moments. I think I took a few pictures while I was out today, not a lot. Mostly it was the clouds that were capturing my attention, so I have a feeling they're probably pictures of clouds. I hope you enjoy. It was a very good day.